Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're undertaking what might just be the ultimate deep dive into, spiritual engineering.
That's a great way to put it.
We're looking at a step-by-step instruction manual for achieving total liberation, and it's all built upon the single immediate act of breathing.
Mm-hmm.
This is not just some vague meditative philosophy. It is a highly detailed, systematic blueprint.
It truly is. We're examining one of the most celebrated and, I'd say, structurally complete discourses attributed to the Buddha, the text, focusing on the practice of Anapanasati.
Mindfulness of breathing.
Exactly. And what makes this source so exceptional is that it doesn't just promise results, it maps the entire causal progression. It shows you the how.
So our mission today is to become cartographers of this map. We need to trace how the initial act of just, focused breath observation, broken down into 16 specific steps.
16 very specific steps.
How that provides the fuel for the entire path. How does Anapanasati fulfill the 4 foundations of mindfulness? Then how does that lead to the activation of the 7 factors of awakening? And ultimately, how does this whole sequence guarantee wisdom and liberation?
Exactly. We're aiming to understand the system, not just the concept. But before we get to the technique, I think we have to appreciate the environment in which this instruction was given.
The context.
The context, yes. The source reveals a community that was operating at peak spiritual performance, which sets a very, very high bar for the teaching itself.
Okay, so let's start there. Let's start with the setting, beginning with that traditional frame, Ivaname Sutta, thus have I heard. Where does this foundational teaching take place?
The setting is Savatthi, which was one of the major cities during the Buddha's time. And specifically, it's at the Pabarama, the Eastern Park.
The Eastern Park.
And this park contained a magnificent vihara, a kind of residential complex known as Megara Matupasada.
Which means vihara of Megara's mother, right?
That's right. It was built by a very generous and devoted laywoman, Visakha, who was called Megara's mother. The location itself, it speaks to the incredible support and the maturity of the wider community. This wasn't some fringe group in the wilderness.
They were established. And when we look at the assembly that was present, it wasn't a casual gathering, was it? This was more like an ancient spiritual think tank.
Oh, absolutely. It was the spiritual elite. The text explicitly names the most senior and highly accomplished disciples, the tetrads.
The elder monks.
Exactly. The elders. We see names like Sariputta, Mahamoggallana, Mahakassapa, Ananda, Mahakakana, and others. I mean, these are figures who represent the absolute highest levels of insight and meditative power.
So the sheer presence of these masters validates the profound importance of what's about to be taught.
It totally does. It's like having every top scientist in a field gathered in one room to hear a single lecture. Something huge is about to happen.
Okay, so we have the location and the highest caliber attendees. What was the community actually doing at that time? What was the spiritual health of the assembly?
This is a crucial detail, and one that's often overlooked. The text notes that the elder monks, the Thera Bhikkhu, were heavily invested in training and mentoring the newer monks.
Nave Bhikkhu Avadanti Anusasanti.
Precisely. And this wasn't just passive guidance. The text actually quantifies the effort. It mentions elders guiding 10, 20, 30, or even 40 new practitioners at the same time.
Wow. That sounds less like a monastery and more like a dedicated spiritual accelerator program.
That's the perfect analogy. And the efficiency was remarkable. The source reports that as a result of this intense, focused guidance, the new monks were realizing great progress, progressing from one state to another. That's the one. They were moving systematically through the stages of realization. This tells you the teaching environment was incredibly fertile. They had a working system.
So the stage is set with this atmosphere of successful mentorship. And the initial address, it happens on a pretty significant date, too.
Yes. The initial exhortation was given on the full moon night, the 15th day of Pavaran. This marks the conclusion of the annual rains retreat.
Okay, so a time of culmination.
Exactly. The Bhagava was seated outdoors, and the text really emphasizes that he was surrounded by a massive, silent assembly. The Pali is Duccibuddha.
Now, why is the silence so important here? It's not just politeness, is it?
No, not at all. In this context, Duccibuddha signifies a deep internal composure and a really high level of concentration.
Ah, I see.
For a gathering of this size to maintain that kind of profound silence means their minds weren't wandering, they weren't fidgeting. They were already established in a concentrated state, ready to receive the highest teachings.
So the silence is actually evidence of their pre-existing high attainment.
It is. It's a sign that the audience is already primed.
Okay, so into this concentrated silence, the Buddha gives his rallying cry. What was the core message of this exhortation?
He first offers a very personal declaration of his own commitment. He says, I am energized by this path. Arahosmi bhikkhave imaya paipadaya.
So he's leading by example.
Completely. And then he immediately directs that energy outward. He calls the monks to increase their effort, biosomataya via arabhata.
And specifically for what purpose?
Specifically to achieve what is yet unattained, unachieved, or unrealized. The text says, apatasa patiya, anadikatasa adigamaya, atachikatasa sachikirya.
It's a call to immediate, practical, spiritual diligence. No resting on their laurels.
Not for a second. And this effort was then amplified by a very practical measure.
What's that?
He announced his intention to remain in Savatthi for the next 4 months through the autumn festival known as the Kumudi Katamasini.
And that was a signal.
It was a huge signal to practitioners everywhere. As a result, country monks, the Janapada Bhikkhu, immediately began traveling to Savatthi to be near him and the masters.
That sounds like a spiritual pilgrimage organized on the spot. And that influx must have further intensified the mentorship system you described.
It did, precisely. The text repeats the observation that the elders received these traveling monks and guided them with even greater vigor, and this resulted in further documented great progress.
So the context confirms that the teaching on Anapanasati was delivered to an audience that was not only prepared, but was actively demonstrating success on the path. They were ready for the structural blueprint.
They were more than ready. They were living proof that the system worked.
After this period of intense mutual support and measurable progress, the Buddha turns around and delivers this massive praise to the assembly, describing them in the most elevated terms possible.
What did he say about the quality of this spiritual gathering?
He didn't just call them good, he called them pure and essential. He describes the assembly as faultless, chatter-free, pure, established in essence.
Apalapaya, Nibalapaya, Sudasar Patil.
That's it. And this purity, he says, grants them a massive social and spiritual status. That status being what exactly?
They are deemed worthy of offerings and hospitality hunaya, kahunaya. And they are declared a supreme field of merit for the world.
Anugrah punya katalokasa.
Right. He elevates the community to the highest possible standard, confirming that they are the most profitable recipients for any spiritual gift or offering. He even noted that merely to witness them would be worth traveling distances counted in leagues.
Which is no jana gana nani. So the message is clear, the path works, and the proof is standing right here.
Absolutely.
That leads directly into the detailed spiritual inventory, mapping the hierarchy of achievement present in that room. This is where we get a clear understanding of the goals of the practice. Let's start at the absolute highest attainment, the Arahants.
The Arahants are the fully liberated ones. The text defines them by their accomplished state. Their taints are destroyed Kirasava.
The taints being greed, hatred, and delusion primarily.
Yes, the fundamental poisons. They have done what was to be done, Karakariya. They are relieved of the burden of Hetabara.
And what is that burden, specifically?
It's the burden of the 5 aggregates. The burden of clinging to a sense of self built out of form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness.
So they've put that down.
They have. And finally, they are completely liberated by true knowledge, samadhanya vimuta. They are finished with the cycle of suffering. For them, the work is done.
That seems like an almost impossible state of permanent freedom. Moving down the scale just a bit, we find the non-returners, the anagami. What defines their achievement?
Okay, so they have destroyed the 5 lower fetters.
Panyakana, Orambagiana, Soyajana, and Parikaya.
Exactly. Now, the fetters are the 10 bonds that tie beings to the cycle of rebirth. The first 3 they destroyed are the same as the stream enterer, which we'll get to.
Personality view, doubt, and adherence to rights.
Correct. But the 2 additional fetters they've completely eliminated are sensual desire and ill will or aversion.
Wow. Eliminating those 2 components, the desire for any sensory pleasure and even a flicker of ill will, that must radically change one's experience of reality.
It does. Completely. It means they are no longer bound to the sensory realm. They're described as spontaneously arising in the higher heavenly realm.
Oh, papadika.
Yes, and attaining nibbana there, never returning to this world. That's the Anavati Dhamma part. They are guaranteed the end of suffering without ever stepping foot back into the human realm.
Okay, Next down the line, the once returners, or sakadami. They're defined by having weakened their attachments rather than eliminating them entirely.
That's right. So they've eliminated those first three fetters completely, just like the non-returner. But the core poisons greed, aversion, and delusion, ragadasa mohana. They're only reduced significantly. The Pali is tanuta, meaning made thin.
Made thin, I like that. So there's still a residue.
A very fine residue, yes. And because of that, they're guaranteed to return to the human realm only one more time to complete the path and end suffering.
And finally, the entry point to certain enlightenment, the stream enterers, the sotapanna.
The stream enterers have permanently, irrevocably eliminated those first three fetters we mentioned. Personality view, skeptical doubt, and clinging to rites and rituals.
Once those three are gone, you're in the stream.
You're in. You are considered to have entered the flow leading inexorably to nibbana. The text defines them as certain of their fate, niyata, and destined for enlightenment, sambodhaparayana.
It's truly remarkable that this single assembly contained practitioners at every single one of these stages of guaranteed realization.
It really does speak volumes about the vibrancy of the path at that moment. And beyond those four stages of enlightenment, the text further lists those who are dedicated to the foundational disciplines.
Right, the practices themselves.
The four foundations of mindfulness, satipatthana, the seven factors of awakening, bodhisattva, the Noble Eightfold Path, and the four divine abodes.
And the common denominator that brings us here today.
The text makes sure to explicitly mention that some monks were dedicated specifically to the development of Anapanasati.
Mindfulness of breathing.
Exactly. And the context here is vital. This practice is the one common thread. It's used by the novice striving for stream entry and by the Arahant maintaining their stability. It is the practice that underpins all the others.
So this context establishes the incredible significance of the practice. Now let's pivot to the central thesis of the discourse, which acts as the ultimate promise to the practitioner. The text states that this practice yields great fruit and great benefit.
The Pali phrasing is mahaphalahoti mahanisasa, great fruit, great benefit. The text is setting up the expectation that the return on your effort is going to be exponential.
But you said the real genius here isn't just the promise.
No, it's the structural guarantee.
You're talking about that causal chain, the one that links the breath to the highest insight. How does the text describe this systemic progression?
It lays it out in three perfect logical steps. It claims that Anapanasati, when developed and frequently practiced, bhavido bahulakata.
Okay.
First, it fulfills the four foundations of mindfulness. Tataro satipahane paripureti.
Now, that seems like an enormous conceptual leap. How can we be sure that just observing the physical act of breathing automatically translates into mastering the essential domains of reality, body, feeling, mind, and ultimate phenomena?
That is the very question the rest of the discourse is designed to answer, and it's why this text is so crucial. The argument is that the observation of the breath is so fundamental, so universal, and so immediate.
It's always there.
It's always there. And that makes it the perfect anchor point for investigating all four of those domains. If you master the breath, you master the conditions for the four foundations. It's all contained within it.
Okay, so that's the first link in the chain. And once the four foundations are mastered,
the established four foundations of mindfulness then fulfill the seven factors of awakening. Satabojag parikurenti.
And this is the transition from just being stable to something more active.
Exactly. It's the transition from establishing stable awareness to activating the dynamic engine of insight and realization. The factors are awakened and brought to maturity.
So the foundations create the necessary conditions, the right environment, and the factors generate the unstoppable momentum and the final guaranteed outcome.
The seven factors of awakening fulfill the ultimate goal: wisdom and liberation. Vijavimutti paripurenti.
It's a perfect, linear, and completely integrated path.
It is. You don't jump from breath to liberation. You proceed systematically through the foundations and the factors, and the breath is the initial instruction, the key that makes the whole journey possible.
Okay, let's get into the engine room. If this practice is so potent, we need to understand the exact technical instructions. It's not just a vague instruction to breathe, it's a rigorous sequence of 16 steps, starting with specific physical requirements.
The setup is absolutely key. The conditions emphasize retreat and focus. The practitioner must go to the wilderness or the root of a tree or an empty dwelling. Precisely. The environment must be conducive to withdrawal from sensory input. You need to reduce the noise, both external and internal.
What about the physical posture? How specific does it get?
It's very specific. The posture must facilitate alertness and stability. So sitting cross-legged palaka bhuvitva, keeping the body upright ujokaya pachiaya, and establishing mindfulness right in front.
Parimukha satit upatapta.
And that instruction to establish mindfulness right in front is often interpreted as placing attention at the contact point of the breath.
So the nostrils or the upper lip?
Typically, yes.
Yeah.
The gateway between the inner and outer world.
And the fundamental instruction is just to be present with the breath, satova asasati, satova pasasati, to breathe in mindfully, breathe out mindfully.
That's the core of it. Now let's break down the 16 steps, starting with the first tetrad, which focuses on the body, the kaya.
Okay.
This first tetrad is purely mechanical observation. It's about grounding the mind in the physical present. So, step 1. The practitioner trains by breathing in and being aware of a long breath, Dikasa Sasami.
And if it's not long?
Then you move to step 2. They train by breathing in and being aware of a short breath, Rasa Asami.
So these first 2 steps are just ensuring basic, sustained awareness of the reality of the breath, its length, its flow. There's no judgment, just observation.
Exactly. It removes the breath from the subconscious automatic process and brings it into conscious observation. The complexity starts to ramp up with the third step.
Which is?
Step 3. Training to experience the whole body of the breath process. Sabakaya Paya Savatthi.
Oh, this is often misinterpreted, isn't it? People think it means sensing their entire physical body from head to toe.
It is often misinterpreted. But in the context of Kayasara, the bodily formation, it means experiencing the breath itself holistically.
Ah, so the beginning, middle, and end of the in-breath, and the beginning, middle, and end of the out-breath.
Precisely. You're realizing that the breath itself is a body of sensation, a complete event. You're making that entire subtle physical process the singular object of your awareness.
And the fourth step is the culmination of this awareness. It's about calmness.
Yes. Step 4. Training to tranquilize the bodily formation. Pasampaya pesacha. As your attention stabilizes on the whole body of the breath naturally becomes finer, calmer.
And as the breath calms, the body calms.
The grosser physical tensions associated with the breath and with the body just holding its posture, they naturally subside. The body sinks into a state of profound physical ease.
So once that physical framework is tranquilized, the focus can shift. And that leads us into the second tetrad, the contemplation of feelings, or Vedana. These steps are about working with the psychological results of that established concentration.
The transition here is crucial. The stability you achieve in the first tetrad is the absolute prerequisite for generating the non-sensual joys associated with deep meditation, vajana.
So step 5?
Step 5. Training to experience rapture or joy. The Pali is Pitapai Savatthi.
Followed by step 6. Training to experience pleasure or happiness. Sukhapai Savatthi. Now, we often use rapture and pleasure interchangeably in common language. But in this technical context, what is the precise distinction between piti and sukha?
It's a really important distinction. Piti, or rapture, is often described as an exciting, energetic jolt. It can be a physiological thrill, a flooding of joy that can even feel physically disruptive, like waves or goosebumps.
So it's the initial excitement of success and concentration.
You could say that. Whereas sukha, pleasure or happiness, is deeper, more sustained, and much more tranquil. It's the sweet, stable contentment that follows after the more energetic piti begins to fade.
So piti is the exciting surge, and sukha is the deep, quiet satisfaction. Now, we generate these feelings, but the next 2 steps require us to observe and then tranquilize the very inputs creating them.
That takes us to a deeper level of mental formation. So step 7, training to experience the mental formation, Citta Sakkappa Savatthi.
And what does mental formation mean here? It sounds a bit abstract.
In this specific meditative context, Sattasakkara refers to the factors that feed the mind, specifically feeling, vedana, and perception, sanya. You are observing the psychological inputs that are shaping your current state of consciousness.
That's fascinating. So we are observing the raw data, the feelings of joy, and the perceptions or labels we put on them that constitute the meditative experience. The process itself becomes an object of awareness.
And that awareness leads to control, which brings us to step 8, training to tranquilize the mental formation. Pasampaya Chittasakkara.
So just as we calmed the gross body in step 4, here we are calming the subtle psychological activity.
Exactly. You're calming the mental labeling and the emotional reactivity tied to those feelings of joy and pleasure. The goal is to let go of the mental processing around the joy and arrive at a profoundly quiet, stable mind.
That sets the stage perfectly for the third tetrad, contemplation of mind, or citta. Now, the focus is entirely on the state of consciousness itself, which is now stable and quiet.
Right. And this tetrad shifts from passive observation to intentional development and refinement of the mind's concentrated state. So we start with step 9, training to experience the mind. Chittapai Savatthi.
What does that mean, to experience the mind?
It means developing a precise, bare awareness of the mind's quality. You just know it directly. Is it concentrated? Is it vast? Is it bright? Is it free from hindrances? You're no longer just observing objects in the mind. You're aware of the mind state itself.
And the next steps are about fine-tuning that concentration, ensuring it remains dynamic and balanced.
Yes, because if the calm you achieved in the previous tetrad results in dullness or lethargy, which can happen, you need an uplift. So, step 10 is training to gladden the mind. Apipamodiya Chitta.
So this is an active intervention.
It is. It's applying a specific technique to revitalize the mind if it becomes too passive, ensuring the energy factor remains balanced with concentration.
That balance is essential before attempting the deepest level of stability, I assume.
It is, which leads to step 11. Training to concentrate or stabilize the mind. Samadha Chitta. This is the explicit instruction to establish deep, unwavering concentration or samadhi.
This is often equated with reaching the higher stages of jhana absorption, right? Where the mind is completely unified and single-pointed.
That's the common understanding, yes. And the final, most advanced step in this tetrad is what separates concentration from true insight.
And that is?
Step 12. Training to liberate the mind. Vimokkaya Chitta. This refers to liberating the mind from the subtle attachments, even to the blissful state of samadhi itself.
So concentration is powerful, but clinging to the feeling of concentration is a subtle hindrance.
A very subtle one. This step is about releasing the mind into its natural, unconstrained freedom, ready for the final work.
That leads us seamlessly into the final tetrad, contemplation of mental objects or ultimate truths, the Dhamma. We're transitioning from developing concentration to gaining radical wisdom.
This is where the systematic practice meets final insight. You are using that purified, liberated mind to view reality as it is.
So, step 13.
Step 13. Training to contemplate impermanence. Anapanasati. Viewing the entire process, the breathing, the feelings of joy, the mind state itself, is constantly arising and passing away. Nothing is stable. Nothing is permanent.
And this direct seeing of impermanence then leads inevitably to a sense of detachment.
It does, which is step 14. Training to contemplate dispassion or fading away. Viraganopasi. As the practitioner realizes the fleeting, unsatisfactory nature of all conditioned phenomena, including their own refined meditative states, attachment naturally fades. This is the loosening of the grip.
And that loosening prepares the mind for the experience of complete absence, of cessation.
Yes. Step 15. Training to contemplate cessation. Nirohanapasi. This is the profound experiential realization that the cycle of arising and passing can stop entirely. It's the direct intuitive insight into Nibbana as the cessation of the entire framework of suffering and conditioning.
Which culminates in the final act of surrender.
Step 16. Training to contemplate relinquishment or letting go. Bhayanasaganapasi. This is the final release, the active abandonment of all attachment, all views, and the very sense of self that previously bound one to the conditioned world. It is the fulfillment of the path.
Walking through those 16 steps, it's just so clear this is a structured curriculum, not a simple exercise. And what's fascinating is how the text then argues that this entire curriculum is functionally equivalent to the 4 foundations of mindfulness.
This is the genius of the discourse. The Buddha's great promise required this detailed mapping to be valid. He had to show how the 4 tetrads perfectly overlap with the 4 domains of awareness: body, feeling, mind, and phenomena. Kaya, Vedana, Citta, Dhamma.
Okay, let's start with the clearest link. Kayanupasana, the contemplation of the body. How does the text justify Tetrad 1, steps 1 through 4, as covering the body foundation?
The justification is direct and fundamental. The incoming and outgoing breaths are physical phenomena. The Buddha states the incoming and outgoing breaths. I say that these are among the body group.
Kayasukanyinataraha, bikav, evavadami adita asasapasasa.
That's it. If you're observing the physical length and sensation of the breath, you are observing the body.
Right.
It's the body's most immediate, tangible, and available sign of life. It couldn't be more direct.
Simple enough. Now for the structural challenge. Vedananupasana, contemplation of feelings. Tetrad 2 deals with generating rapture and pleasure and tranquilizing mental formations. But how is the practice of breath mindfulness inherently a contemplation of feelings?
This is where the subtlety comes in, and this addresses your earlier question about the lead. The text doesn't just rely on the feelings that are generated, like piti and sukha. The deeper link is in the very nature of attention itself, manasikara.
Explain that. What do you mean by attention?
The text states that the careful attention to the in-breaths and out-breaths, I say that these are among the feeling group.
Vedanasu vedanyanyatara.
Bhikkhave, eva vadami, yarida asasapasana satuka manasikara. Careful attention, satuka manasikara, is a psychological factor that actively shapes the quality of your feeling tone.
How so?
Well, if your attention is skillful, focused, and gentle, it naturally leads to tranquil, non-sensual joy. If your attention is sloppy, distracted, or forceful, it leads to agitation, frustration, and unpleasant feelings.
So managing the attention, which creates the conditions for the meditative feelings, is functionally equivalent to contemplating the arising of feelings. You are observing the causal link between a mental input and an emotional output.
Precisely. By mastering the attention on the breath, you are automatically stabilizing and refining the entire feeling realm. You are fulfilling Vedanapasana in real time.
Got it. Okay, moving on to Satanapasana, contemplation of the mind. Tetrad 3 is explicit. Experiencing, gladdening, concentrating, and liberating the mind. That's a direct match.
It is a direct match, as these are all functions of the mind, the Sita. However, the text takes a moment here to issue a critical warning, which underscores the prerequisite for all this.
The warning that this practice is not for the unmindful?
Yes, I do not teach Anapanasati to one who is unmindful or lacking comprehension. Naha, bhikkhave, mutihasatisa, asampajanas, Anapanasati vadami.
So what does that tell us?
It reminds us that the ability to gladden or liberate the mind in steps 10 and 12 requires a high, established level of mindfulness, sati, and clear comprehension, sampajanya. Without those, you're just daydreaming or spacing out, not practicing deep mind development.
So the preceding 8 steps must be mastered to ensure the mind is fully qualified for this deep work.
Absolutely.
Finally, Dhammanupassana, the contemplation of mental objects or qualities. Tetrad 4 is the insight phase.
This is the viewing of ultimate reality. By this stage, the mind is stable, pure, and ready to investigate the highest truths, the Dhamma. And steps 13 to 16, impermanence, dispassion, cessation, and relinquishment, are the 4 noble truths applied directly to your immediate meditative experience.
And the result of applying that wisdom is the shedding of attachment.
Yes. The text confirms that this practice leads to seeing with wisdom the abandonment of greed and distress. That's it. The insight gained from the structural analysis of reality. The Dhamma allows the practitioner to regard the world with equanimity and let go of craving and suffering. The 16 steps have now fulfilled all 4 foundations systematically.
That structural guarantee is truly powerful. So we have the foundational practice, which is the breath, the domains of awareness, the satipatthana, and now we move to the dynamic engine that drives the realization, the 7 factors of awakening.
This is the final stage of the sequence. Once the 4 foundations are cultivated and established evabhavita, they immediately initiate and fulfill the 7 factors of awakening.
Satabhocha parakdurenti.
Right. This is the transformation from static concentration to dynamic, penetrative insight. This is where the real power gets unlocked.
Okay, let's look at the flow. How does mastering the foundations activate the bojjhanga? The system begins, logically, with the very element that defines the practice itself, mindfulness.
Factor 1, sati, mindfulness. When you're practicing satipatthana, whether on the body, feelings, or mind, mindfulness is established, it's clear, and it's unforgotten. The esamatthya, that unwavering presence, is the mindfulness factor, satisambhacchago. It's the anchor for everything that follows.
Once that clear, stable anchor is set, the mind naturally begins to examine the object it's holding.
Exactly. That leads to factor 2, dhammavikaya, investigation of phenomena. With that established mindfulness, the practitioner uses their inherent wisdom, their panyaya, to examine the nature of what they're observing. The breath, the joy, the state of the mind, all of it. They begin to analyze, discern, and scrutinize. The Pali verbs are pavishanati, pavikayati, parivimasailo pachati. This active intellectual scrutiny is the investigation factor.
And sustained, deep scrutiny is highly mentally engaging. That must generate immediate energy.
It does. Factor 3, Virya, effort energy. The thorough investigation of reality, fueled by mindful stability, generates a powerful, unflagging effort or energy. Viryazalina. This is mental tenacity, the commitment to seeing the investigation through to the end. And that is the effort factor.
So the stability of sati focuses the investigation of Dhamma Vikaya, which in turn generates the necessary drive of virya. And what does this perfect balanced effort produce?
Factor 4, PD, rapture joy. When that effort is purposeful and balanced, not too slack, not too strained, it results in the arising of intense non-sensual joy. PD Niramisa. This is the physiological and psychological uplift that rewards the practitioner and acts as the rapture factor.
But rapture, as we said, is energetic. Prolonged excessive energy is tiring. It must then transition to a sustainable, calmer state.
That's the necessary settling. Factor 5, passaddhi, tranquility, calm. The joy generated by successful effort leads to a soothing effect. Both the body and the mind become deeply tranquil and calm. Kayopi pasambadi, stampi pasambadi. This deep composure is the tranquility factor, which brings the whole system into perfect repose.
And tranquility and happiness are the ideal combination for the deepest state of unified mind.
Indeed, which gives us factor 6, samadhi, concentration. With the body tranquil and the mind happy, pasadhakayasa sukhino, the mind naturally becomes concentrated and utterly stable. Chitta samadhyati. This is the concentration factor, providing the deep foundation necessary for final insight.
But the mind can easily become attached to such a powerful, pleasant state of concentration. So what is needed to ensure this stability doesn't become a new form of clinging?
That's the final crucial step. Factor 7, upekkha, equanimity. Once concentration is achieved, the practitioner regards that very state of mind with balanced, neutral detachment and right judgment. Sukha achupekita hoti.
So equanimity is like a fail-safe.
It is. It ensures that the mind is not pulled toward the powerful attraction of samadhi itself, thus making the concentration factor a tool for insight, not an end in itself. And that is the equanimity factor.
The mapping is brilliant. It shows that sati, mindfulness, and upekkha, equanimity, are the bookends. One starts the process, and the other ensures the result is pure and unattached. And the other 5 factors are the dynamic components that run in between.
And critically, the text repeats this entire 7-factor progression for the practice of mindfulness of all 4 foundations.
Body, feeling, mind, and phenomena.
All 4. It stresses total integration. This process isn't limited to the physical breath. It is the universal dynamic of awakening applied to every sphere of experience the practitioner encounters.
It truly is the complete awakening engine. We've traced the path from the simple breath to the full activation of the 7 factors. Now, the final step. How do these factors guarantee the destination?
The destination, as stated, is Vijavamudi, wisdom and liberation. The text states that the fully developed 7 factors of awakening fulfill this final goal. However, it adds crucial qualifiers.
Okay.
These qualifiers determine whether the intent practice leads to final freedom or merely to deep, but ultimately temporary, meditative attainments.
So simply having the factors active isn't enough. They must be oriented correctly. What are these 4 key supports or conditions?
They are the 4 directional signposts that prevent the practitioner from straying. First, the factors must be supported by seclusion. Vivek-kanisita.
Which doesn't just mean being alone in a cave.
No. It means seclusion from unskillful mental states, specifically the 5 hindrances. The energy generated by the factors must arise from the separation from craving, aversion, sloth, restlessness, and doubt.
Inner detachment. What is the second condition?
The factors must be supported by dispassion. Viraganisata. This is the orientation toward viraga, the fading away of craving. The practitioner uses the concentrated power of the factors to actively loosen their psychological grip on all conditioned phenomena.
How does that differ practically from the next condition, which is cessation?
It's a great question. Dispassion, viraga, is the active, gradual process of loosening and fading. It's the journey out of the current state. Cessation, nirodhanasita, the third condition, is the destination itself. The factors must point directly toward the cessation of suffering, the experience of nibbana.
So viraga is the path, nirodha is the goal?
In a way, yes. And the final one, which we saw as step 16, the breath practice, is relinquishment.
Right.
Fourth, the factors must culminate in relinquishment. This is the final profound act of letting go, relinquishing the attachment to identity, to views, and even to the path itself. It is the necessary final abandonment that results in complete freedom.
So, if the 7 factors are the powerful engine, these 4 conditions, Seclusion, dispassion, cessation, and relinquishment are the steering mechanism, ensuring the immense energy generated leads directly to the permanent end of suffering.
That summarizes the genius of the text perfectly. It provided a spiritual inventory of the highest achievements of the community, proved that a single, simple foundational practice, the breath, perfectly maps onto the entire theoretical structure of the path, the satipahana,
Right.
and then detailed the dynamic engine, the bodhsattva, that drives those insights to their ultimate conclusion, vijjoja vimutti, provided those four crucial conditions are met.
The complexity of the highest wisdom is made accessible through the simplicity of inhalation and exhalation.
Indeed. We started with an assembly of fully realized masters, gathered in perfect silence, and we ended by reverse engineering the exact sequence they used to reach that state.
And the source assures us that the same foundational physical practice is used for initial stability and for the ultimate insights into impermanence and cessation. It's the alpha and the omega of the practice.
It is.
This incredible document, it removes the mystery from spiritual achievement and instead presents a verifiable system of cause and effect. It suggests that radical transformation is not dependent on some mystical intervention, but on a systematic application of attention and effort.
It democratizes enlightenment in a way. It places the apparatus of awakening not in a remote temple or an esoteric philosophy, but in the immediate, constantly available reality of your own body.
So here is the final provocative thought for you, the learner. If the mere careful attention to inhalation and exhalation, when diligently followed through these specific 16 steps, is deemed sufficient to activate the full 7 factors of awakening and lead to the eventual end of suffering, what does that say about the true potential latent in the most ordinary and readily available moments of your day? Is there ever a second of your life where you are not holding the complete technical blueprint for ultimate spiritual freedom?